Josh Giddey looks really good in the first half, and Australia's lost to Canada. But there's some things that are a little concerning in the second half of the game. We're going to talk about the loss overall, Josh Giddey's performance, and more. But first, we got to play that intro.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. My name is Haize. You guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content. So, Australia lost today to Canada. Really, this was a really good game. I'd say through about 2.5 quarters. And then Canada kicked it into a different gear that Australia just could not match. They just couldn't match it. And that's unfortunate. But when you look at the number of NBA players on Canada and how they just were able to defensively really try to manipulate Australia, one thing that this game did prove is that Josh Giddey is the heart. Whether he's scoring the most points or not on Australia, he's the engine of that offense. And when Canada switched Lou Dort and then sometimes Dylan Brooks onto Josh Giddey, it really just completely disrupted what Australia was trying to do on the offensive side of the ball. And defensively, Australia really just could not match the athleticism. RJ Barrett went into a different level. He ends up leading all scorers with 24 points, going 8 of 14 from the field. And ultimately, Australia just does not have enough to pull out this victory. But when you look at the performance from Josh Giddey, which is what we're going to talk about here, 19 points from Josh Giddey, 7 of 14 from the field, 3 of 7 from three-point range. That really isn't indicative of how well he shot the three ball in the first half of the game. He just couldn't hit anything in the second half. I believe he was 2 of 3, maybe it was 2 of 4 in the first half of the game. So he ends up only making one more the rest of the game, but he has 7 rebounds, 6 assists in this game. And Josh Giddey just continues to show as a point guard everything that he can bring to the table. And hopefully he's going to be bringing that to the table for the Chicago Bulls next season. This, again, the amount of NBA players on Canada, they're always going to be one of the deepest teams in this Olympics, and I can't wait to see how far they go. They're probably going to be the team that comes out of that Group A, but you got to love the way that they played overall. Dylan Brooks playing his villain role at times. There was an altercation with Josh Giddey. I love that Josh Giddey didn't back down, but Brooks had 16 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist in the game. 24 points from RJ Barrett. We already talked about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 16 points. You got Lou Dort with 11 points as well in this game. And they were just able to pull it out, man. I mean, Canada, the way that they ratcheted up that defense in that second half was masterful to watch. That's exactly what you want to see from a team that has that many athletes on it. And then when they did start pushing the break in transition a little bit more, Australia just couldn't combat it. Canada shoots 50% from the field, 36% from three-point range. They also get 19 free throws in this game. And you look at the flip side of that for Australia, they only 47% from the field, which isn't necessarily terrible either. Dante Exum had 15 points off the bench for them. But again, Josh Giddey is just such the engine of what that Australia team does. And when they were able to really disrupt him. So I believe he had 4 points in the second half of this game. So even he finished with 19 points, but keep in mind, he had like 4 or 5 points in the second half of the game. So most of his scoring came in the first half. Josh Giddey had a masterful first half of basketball. Just that second half with the athleticism, it definitely caused some issues there. But Josh Giddey, I keep saying it, I'm going to keep saying it for any Bulls fan that continues to doubt how Josh Giddey can perform on the Chicago Bulls team. Y'all just, at this point, you're just being willfully ignorant because Josh Giddey's good. Josh Giddey's good. He's going to be good for this Bulls team. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star level or anything like that, but I do think that Josh Giddey is definitely going to, as a point guard and as a person who runs the offense, he's going to probably have a big season for the Chicago Bulls. I would not be surprised in that at all. A whole lot of Bulls. Shout out to Bulls. Troy says tough loss. Definitely tough loss. It's unfortunate, man. Great game from Brock. Absolutely, man. Okay, second half, Dort decided to play foul ball. Yeah, I mean, them putting Dort and, like I said, at times Dylan Brooks on Josh Giddey, it just, I mean, that's just something that it's going to be hard to combat, especially when you're not shooting the three ball well. But one thing I also got to give love to Josh Giddey for is that I've said this many times. I don't need Josh Giddey to be an amazing 3-point shooter. I need him to be somebody that has a respectable 3-pointer, right? Meaning that if he's left open, he takes it and he hits some of them. Even the 3 for 7, how he finished the night, that's a pretty solid percentage for a guy who's not known as a 3-point shooter. Now, of course, that 3-point line is a little bit closer in international basketball. But if you guys remember, there was Derrick Rose's first 2 years. And I'm not comparing Josh Giddey as a player to Derrick Rose, so please don't take it as that. But Derrick Rose really treated about 2 feet in from the 3-point line as basically his 3-point line, because teams were so used to him driving to the rim that they really packed it in. They played that zone defense to try to keep him away from the rim. So he was able to use his speed and develop that shot to where it was a mid-range shot, but he used that as his 3-point line, and it made the defense have to guard him further out. If Josh Giddey can at least do that, right? Be a player that teams have to respect the fact that he will shoot it, whether it's a 3-pointer or slightly a little bit in from the 3-point line, and it's technically a mid-range shot. That's going to provide more spacing for players like Modest Busilis, players like Ayo Dosunmu, players like Patrick Williams to cut to the rim more. And so that's, again, with Josh Giddey's manipulation of the defense and how well he reads defenses, could be a really important part of the Bulls offense as well next year. So yeah, that's just something that I wanted to point out. I'll probably go into a deeper dive on that as well. But I think that's something to look out for, of how Josh Giddey can extend his game and force defenses to guard him fully out. Because if you can just step in a foot or two from that 3-point line and hit that shot reliably, that still creates some spacing there for you. Not as much spacing, of course, but it does create some spacing there for you. And so Josh Giddey's such a smart basketball player that I expect him to kind of start exploiting that as well in the NBA level. Brock again says the Bulls will be fine with Giddey. Yeah, they're going to, and I agree with that, bro. I agree with that. Definitely agree with that. If Giddey can bring the 3-point shooting to the NBA, he's going to be a gem. I completely agree with you. Like Josh Giddey, and this is not just because he's a Chicago Bulls player. He's either turning into a solid defender or a solid 3-point shooter, or a mixture of both, away from being a top 10 point guard in the NBA. Period. With his playmaking, his ability to get to the rim, his intelligence on that side of the ball, offensively, he's basically a total package. If he can become better defensively, which you got to give Josh Giddey credit, at least in the international play, he's been solid defensively. Not great, but solid defensively. But if Josh Giddey can turn into a solid defender or a solid 3-point shooter or a mixture of both, hey, the sky's the limit for Josh Giddey. You're talking about probably a perennial all-star if that's the case. You're right. Giddey is the new heart, taking the torch from Patty. Yeah, and shout out to Patty Mills, who at 36, 37 years old is still out there balling internationally, man. We must beat Greece to guarantee to move on from the group stage. And I think they can. Listen, Greece isn't what Greece used to be. It can definitely be done. We couldn't hit the side of the barn in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it was bad. It was definitely bad, man. They had to be able to shoot better in that second half of the game. Shout out to Bulls Daily in the building. Al says he had 10 points in the first quarter. Yeah, it was crazy. Watching Josh Giddey move around the court. And keep in mind, I'm admittedly somebody who I didn't watch a whole lot of OKC basketball. I watched some. I probably watched maybe 10 games each of the last two, so 20 games total. Outside of them playing the Bulls the last couple of seasons for the OKC Thunder, and I don't think that's fair to get a good sample size, but going back and watching some of his tape, definitely watching this international play all this summer intentfully for Josh Giddey. Hey, listen, the people who were asleep on Josh Giddey are going to be on the wrong side of history. I feel very confident in saying that. Is Josh just another Zoe, but less defense and shooting? No. Listen, Zoe is a great passer. Josh Giddey's a great playmaker. Those are different things, right? And I think they're both very high IQ players, but Lonzo Ball could thread the needle passing wise. Josh Giddey playmakes. He creates plays out of nothing for his teammates to get open with the way that he manipulates the defense. So it's similar, but different. It's very, very different in the way that Josh Giddey does it. Both can be effective in different ways, but the way that Josh Giddey as a playmaker, right, as far as creating nothing out of something, I think it's the next level, even above what Lonzo was able to do in the half court. Lonzo was an amazing passer and a very smart player. Josh Giddey, playmaking wise, is just a little bit above that from what I've seen, just a little bit above that. So can't believe the FIBA ref fell for Dort's flop on Mills moving screen. Patty isn't that strong. Yeah, it's the flopping is crazy. Flopping's crazy. That was some sloppy play by Australia. So many air balls and Patty forcing the sky when he didn't need to. Yeah, I mean, They definitely, and the athleticism of Canada definitely got to Australia in the second half of that game. And yeah, they still had a period of time, right? They tied it, or maybe they were down by 2 points, I think, going into the fourth quarter. But then just that they just took it into a different level, and they just weren't able to combat it, man. It's unfortunate. In Australia, I'm Australian, and Giddey did so well, but we didn't have anyone else that can stand up when the other team is trying to just lock up Giddey. Yeah, and that's why I said, like, he's really the heart of that, of especially that offense. That was Australia's game to lose. A lot of sloppy play with a lot of air balls. Yeah, it was crazy. At some point, you delusional Bulls fans who thought Giddey was an absolute trash is going to realize he's a better pickup than a pickup than AC. I mean, listen, especially if you're looking at, I mean, they're better in different ways. Like AC is a defender that Josh Giddey will never turn into, right? Like Josh Giddey, I doubtfully is ever going to be the defender, and AC is such an amazing defender. But like when you talk about the strengths, right, in the heights, like AC has all defensive first team potential. Josh Giddey has all-star potential, like several all-star year potential. And it's just they're just very different players, very different players. Giddey just wore down late. Epic competitor just needs other shooters. Yeah, I mean, and you can't do it by yourself, right? That's why even in the NBA, role players matter. All that stuff matters. So Giddey's also still 21. He's still developed. That's another great point. Definitely another great point there. McFundy says, I watched every OKC game last 2 years. Giddey was neglected last year over J-Dub. In Dallas series, both were disappointing. Yeah. And J-Dub definitely was disappointing in the Dallas series for sure as well. So can you imagine how good Giddey will be if he wore a headband? That's not the headband. That's hilarious. That's funny. Josh is one skill player playmaking. He has turned it over all the time. And no, he's more than one skill player. No, I'm sorry, you can't watch Josh Giddey and say he's a one skill player. The quick first step, his ability to break down the defense and get to the rim himself. Yes, he does turn the ball over, but there's always playmakers who playmake at the level of Josh Giddey. The one thing that he's going to be joining with the Bulls is not other players that can also playmake, that can handle the ball. And Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu. But no, Josh Giddey's way more than a one-trick pony. He has an offer. His playmaking is his best skill, but no, his dribble, his handle is really good. His ability to create separation in the mid-range is good. His finishing around the rim is really solid. Josh Giddey's way more than a one-trick pony. You got to watch the game at a higher level, my brother. Way higher level. Giddey is a floor general first and foremost. Long as he has decent three-point shot and serviceable defense, NBA level point guard. Remember, you have 4 other players. Exactly. Completely agree with you there. Dyson Daniels is kind of sneaky good when given the chance. Yeah, I mean, and you got international level is a little bit different, but I agree with you there for sure as well. Josh has the better hair. I mean, he has hair, so that's definitely a thing. Of course, minus the defense, but Alex Caruso could not and would not have given us 18, 6, and 9. I mean, hey, I there's no argument to be done there. And that's another thing. Like, I truly think if the Bulls would have made the same exact trade last offseason instead of this offseason, so after Josh Giddey was coming off his 18, 6, and 8 season, whatever it was, Bulls fans would have a lot of different views on this. But hey, listen, everything all comes to roost at some point, and Bulls fans are gonna have to wake up at some point to the fact that Josh Giddey is a good basketball player. One skill player can tell you barely watch Josh Giddey play. That's what I'm saying. I definitely can't call Josh Giddey a one skill player. He's a lot more than one skills. Now he has some pretty glaring flaws as well, but yeah, come on. Steve-O says if he a one-trick pony, most of the league is a one-trick pony. Hey, that's definitely facts on that one. Giddey is a stud. Most people gave up on him. I mean, and that's just the nature of the NBA, right? And I've said this for a long time. People are so quick, especially for 21, 22-year-old players, to call him bust, right? And it's like, have y'all not seen how many players in the NBA now? Like, I get it. Back in the day, it was like by your third year in the NBA, you kind of knew what players were. But also players were coming in a lot more at that point in time after 2-3 years in college, right? Now, like fans are so ready to give up on players who have barely begun to scratch the surface of what they can be as players. And we just gotta listen. We gotta practice a little patience. Practice a little patience, man. The full court press was brutal. Solid defense all the way around. Giddey showed a lot of effort there. Couldn't fault his defense at all. Yeah, listen. That's why I said, like, defensively, outside of the just how well he play makes defensively. And I get it, it's a very different level. You're not facing people who are usually as athletic as what you're going to do every night in the NBA. But Josh Giddey's defense, how bad people have stated it, has been a little overstated a little bit, in my opinion. Or maybe he's just hitting a stride defensively. Like Josh Giddey being 6'8" at the point guard with a 6'9", 6'10" wingspan, if I'm not mistaken, should be able, just by the nature of his length and size, to guard point guards pretty well, right? So we got to see it round out. If he can turn into that, man, it could be really good, really good. Isaac's not leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're going to match whatever deal someone offers him. Who said something? Did I miss something about Isaac? You can also tell he's worked on his shot. That off-ball 3-point and step-back 3 were nice. Hey, let Peter Patton get to work on him. Let Peter Patton get into work on him as well. Giddey will now be given the opportunity to grow and develop better than here in Chicago. Giddey will be my vote as the most improved player next season. Let's see. Let's definitely see. But all right, y'all, I got to get ready to wrap it up. I do actually work a full-time job. I got a meeting I got to go to on Zoom. I'm glad I was able to get this in before the meeting, though. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before the start of the season. We're a little over 200 away from that, so hit that subscribe button as well, man. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red. The daily episode will be out in about